We are back on CBS Sports HQ with a look at some notable action across the NHL on Saturday. With 1 week left in the NHL regular season, just 2 seats left at the playoff table to be figured out. One in the Central, one in the North, but plenty of seeding implications throughout Saturday's matchups. Joining us now with more, the sharpest man on skates, Vegas insider Todd Fuhrman. Todd, plenty at stake from that seeding standpoint here on Saturday, particularly between the Lightning and the Panthers. Both have punched their playoff tickets, but they enter the day tied in the Central with 75 points apiece. Who gets the edge here?
Yeah, this has quietly been one of the most competitive divisions in the entire NHL so far this season, Joe. When you talk about the top 3 teams, Carolina, by virtue of Tampa losing last night to the Dallas Stars, was able to secure the top overall seed in this division. And now you have the Battle of Florida, as these teams would love to get home ice advantage, especially in the first round. You look at the season series, teams have split so far, 3-3 against one another. Tampa, of course, on the second leg of a back-to-back. But we know Coach Cooper planned for this. He started backup Curtis McElhinney last night, which I assume means Andrei Vasilevsky will be back between the pipes this evening. Meanwhile, Florida on the other side, they've had 4 days to rest. And the one thing I've liked all season long from this Panthers team, they come at you in waves. Joel Quenneville has done an outstanding job getting players like Sasha Barkov and Jonathan Huberdeau to realize their potential. You're seeing Mackenzie Weegar really step up on the blue line in the absence of Aaron Ekblad. But more importantly, one of the more unheralded deadline acquisitions is Sam Bennett has provided a spark. Again, the market's moving against me this morning, but I'm just fine with it. I think people are overvaluing Tampa, expecting them to flip the switch. This team lacks some of that offensive firepower without Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov up front. The Panthers will be the hungrier team, the more well-rested side, and while I wait for a goaltender assignment, I'll begrudgingly put my faith in Sergei Bobrovsky most likely and take Florida as a short home underdog.
I know that when the public's going one direction and Todd Fuhrman's going the other, it's usually good for your money if you had the way of Todd Fuhrman. We'll see what he likes in this one. The Flyers, they've been mathematically eliminated from playoff contention, but never shied away from the role of spoiler. They'll have to travel to the nation's capital to take on the Caps, currently 2 points out of the top seed in the East. Nice value here on the spoiler at plus 160, total set at 6. What's your approach to this one?
Yeah, pretty impressive effort from the Flyers last night. They got an early goal from Joel Farabee and were able to ride that momentum to a 4-2 victory, forcing the Caps into a spot where now they have a little bit more work to do if they're going to be able to secure the #1 overall seed in the East. But I look at this number here, I think you're going to get a much more engaged Washington side in this particular spot. But more importantly for the Caps, they're going to face Alex Lyon, and he has struggled, and struggle probably isn't a strong enough word, to keep the puck out of his own net. When you look at Lyon's performances recently, he's given up 13 goals in his previous 4 games, failing to produce a save percentage in the 90s. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Flyers have played a little bit more freewheeling style since they've been eliminated, and I think they'll be able to put some pressure on Ilya Samsonov as well. Rather than try and navigate through a price in that $1.80, $1.90 range, I'm going to go over the total. I think asking these two teams to combine for 6 goals or more feels like a very reasonable request, knowing how high scoring this series has been all season long.
All right, elsewhere, the Leafs have stated their claim as kings of the North, but any chance to dispatch a rival is one they will take with a smile. They welcome the Habs as heavy favorites in a postseason tune-up, if you will. But Todd, does the nature of this rivalry make this a closer matchup than the odds makers see it?
This seems to be a playoff precursor. I thought all year long Montreal could be a bit of a dark horse in this division, and while they're going to secure passage into the postseason, they'll clearly have their work cut out for them. And I think from a Montreal standpoint, proving your mettle against the #1 overall seed in the North goes a long, long way. We did see this price open right around $2. It started to take money for the Leafs. It'll be a key parlay leg for anybody dabbling in the NHL today. But as the number continues to go, I want to back Montreal in this particular spot. The reality of it, the Leafs have won 6 out of 7. Jack Campbell has been outstanding in relief of Freddie Anderson. But for Montreal, they've been embarrassed each of the last 2 times we've seen them, dropping a 5-1 decision to Ottawa, losing 5-2 to the Leafs. But before that, they were able to outlast Toronto 3-2 in overtime. Caden Primo has struggled. I fully expect Jake Allen to be out there between the pipes. And while slowing down Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, easier said than done, I think the Habs turn this into an ugly affair, a little bit low scoring, and I'll take the price here with one of the bitter rivals on the road.
Give me the North Division every single year. I love it. The Devils, they've long made their vacation plans, but still a couple more tilts to take care of. They'll match up with the Isles, who are locked into a playoff spot, could still climb up the Eastern Conference standings, or Eastern Division standings, excuse me. How do you see this one playing out?
Credit to the Devils, Joe. You mentioned this was a team mired in a long losing streak. They've broken out of it and then some, showing a lot of fight down the stretch, which is so important for a young roster. I mean, this team will be scary going forward when you look at the likes of Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes up front. Defensively, they have plenty of shortcomings, but I'm really optimistic about what the future holds for New Jersey. And part of that is because what we've seen from Mackenzie Blackwood. Since the calendar flipped to May, Blackwood has really shown his mettle between the pipes, and that's so important against an Islanders team that has struggled to score night in, night out. So for me, I look at this Isles team, and if they're going to get 2 points, it's got to be on the defensive side. Ilya Sorokin expected to be between the pipes, and I think these two teams are going to play a little bit of a grinder, much like we saw them do a couple of nights ago. A 2-1 decision for the Devils. It wouldn't bother me in the least if history repeated itself. I know the trend between these teams, 6 out of the 7 matchups have gone under the total. Let's make it 7 out of 8. I'm going under 5.5.
All right, let's look at those plays once again from our sharp Todd Fuhrman. Lightning and Panthers minus money on both sides here, but take the Panthers, fading a little bit of the public opinion. Flyers and Capitals over the 6. Canadians Leafs taking that plus money at Montreal. Opened up around $2, still a nice price at plus 195. The Devils and Isles, meanwhile, play that under for 5.5. As for the early action, the Eastern Conference leading Penguins will look to maintain their 2-point lead over the Caps when they welcome the worst team in the NHL, the lowly Sabres. The odds make this one untouchable, at least on the side of the favorite. So let's target that total of 6. What do you like there, Todd?
I'm going over the total here. I think Pittsburgh has a lot at stake. A chance to win the division and to control its own destiny of sorts. But when you look at their goaltending situation, this will be the first time all year Coach Sullivan's bunch will go out there without a goaltender between the pipes named Casey DeSmith or Tristan Jarry. Maxime Legacy will get the nod as both of the top 2 options for the Penguins a bit nicked up, and the Pens going to err on the side of caution, giving those guys a chance to rest, knowing they have a full week before playoff action resumes. Meanwhile, on the other side, Michael Hauser has been a tremendous story for the Sabres. Of all Cinderella fairy tales in sports, oftentimes, well, they come crashing back to earth, and that happened the other night as the Penguins exploded for 8 goals after Hauser had won his first 2 starts in back-to-back victories against the Isles. When you look at the Penguins, 9 goals or more, that's kind of been the recipe in 4 out of their last 5 games. I think Buffalo goes out there with a nothing-to-lose mentality in its final game of the regular season. I'm going over the total. I think both these teams can get to 3, and this could be one of the more exciting games of the day, knowing that Penguins offense clicking on all cylinders, especially if you're going to get the likes of Jeff Carter chipping in with 4 goals of his own.
I like the play there. As we said at the outset, Todd, just 2 more playoff positions or seeds to be figured out as we come down the stretch here in the NHL season. It's got us thinking playoffs. It's got us thinking cup time. If you have a value play to win the cup at this point right now, where are we buying?
Well, I think a lot of people are going to gravitate towards what they deem to be the 2 best teams that we've seen all year long in the Western Conference. But when you look at the road that the Colorado Avalanche and the Vegas Golden Knights would theoretically have to go through, a money line rollover is going to pay much more handsomely than it would be backing both of those teams future-wise. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay being priced like a Stanley Cup contender, but this group, in my opinion, a far cry from the addition that we saw with the Hunger. We know how difficult it is to repeat when it becomes winning the hardest trophy in sports. Meanwhile, Carolina, en route to the President's Trophy, 8.5 to 1, doesn't give me enough opportunity. So I'll go further down the board and take the Boston Bruins at 13 to 1. This team acquired Taylor Hall at the trade deadline, and you're seeing Hall look a lot more like the player that won the Hart Trophy as a member of the New Jersey Devils a few seasons ago, because they're creating time and space for the likes of David Krejci. We're seeing Craig Smith perform as well, and we know how good the top line can be for the Bees when these guys are moving in the right direction. But more importantly for Boston, they're getting healthy at the right time. They've dealt with a laundry list of injuries on the blue line. Brandon Charlo returned, Matt Grzelcyk looking a lot healthier, and more importantly, Charlie McAvoy can anchor that bunch. Tuukka Rask come down the stretch well rested. I expect him and Jeremy Swayman to be the 1-2 punch. A nice luxury to have if you're Bruce Cassidy, with Jaro Halak potentially being the odd man out. 13 to 1 for me, with the best team in the East playing the best hockey when it matters most. Way too much of an opportunity to pass up. Let everybody else grab the favorites, Joe. Grab Boston as the value play at 13 to 1.
I am running to the window looking at that number right now, 13 to 1. Todd Fuhrman, another clean sheet. Thank you, my friend.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.